The night it happened was the kind of night that stayed with you. Not because of the weather, though the weather was part of it, the particular weight of a July night that had decided not to cool down after sunset, that held the day's heat in the air like something it wasn't ready to let go of. Not because of anything dramatic in the lead-up, no thunder, no portent, none of the narrative warning signs that you'd want if you were writing this as a story rather than living it. It stayed because of what was in it. Because of what came out of the dark and asked a question that changed everything. Walter James Colt was standing outside the Rusty Anchor Bar and Grill on Highway 12 at 11:47 in the evening on a Tuesday in July, and he was standing outside because he needed air. He'd been inside for 3 hours at a table with Patrick Doane and Russell Webb and 2 others from the chapter, having the kind of conversation that required beer and the low-lit privacy of a bar, the kind of conversation that was half business and half something more personal, the kind of conversation that accumulated over years in the lives of men who had decided to belong to something together. He'd stepped outside for the air because the bar was warm and because he'd reached the point in the evening where he needed to stand in the dark by himself for a few minutes, which was something he'd always needed. The periodic withdrawal from noise and other people that he'd learned, over 46 years, was not antisocial but structural. He was built for solitude at intervals. Always had been. He stood by his bike, a 2018 Harley-Davidson Street Glide, midnight blue, the best machine he'd ever owned, and he looked at the highway and the dark fields on either side of it and he breathed. He was 46 years old. He was 6'1" and built with the solid density of someone who had been physical his whole life, whose body had accumulated the specific musculature of work rather than exercise. He had a beard that had been going gray for 5 years and had completed the journey, fully gray now, which he'd been surprised to find he didn't mind. He had dark eyes that people tended to find difficult to read, which he also didn't mind. He was the vice president of the Southern Plains chapter of the Hells Angels. He'd been in the club for 21 years. He ran a welding business that employed 7 people and had been profitable for 12 consecutive years and took on municipal contracts that required him to show up in a truck and be professional in ways that sometimes surprised people who'd made assumptions about him based on the jacket. He was standing in the dark on a Tuesday night in July, thinking about nothing in particular when he heard the sound. It was not a dramatic sound. It was small. It was the sound of feet on gravel, small feet, uncertain ones, the particular sound of someone walking carefully in the dark who was not used to walking in the dark. He looked toward the sound, and a child walked out of the shadow at the edge of the parking lot. She was small. He couldn't tell how small exactly. The dark was imprecise and his eyes were adjusting, but she was small in the way of young children, the way where their smallness was still the primary fact about them, where their size was the first thing any adult registered because any adult still had the instinct to protect things that were that small. She stopped when she saw him. She looked at him. He looked at her. And then she did the thing that stayed with him, that would stay with him for the rest of his life, that he would think about when he was an old man trying to reconstruct the shape of how his life changed. She took 2 steps toward him, and she looked up at him with an expression he could not fully read in the dark, but that had a quality he recognized from somewhere he couldn't immediately place, and she said, "Are you my daddy?" The world stopped for approximately 3 seconds. Not the world, the night, the highway, the sound of the bar behind him, the cicadas, all of that continued. But something in Walter's perception of the world stopped, the way it stopped when something so unexpected happened that the brain needed a moment to reorganize around it. He crouched down. He did it automatically, before he decided to, the instinct of an adult suddenly confronted with a very small child at 11:47 at night, the instinct that said get to her level without consulting thought. He crouched down and he looked at her. She was young. 5, maybe 6. She had light brown hair that was a mess, loose and tangled, the hair of a child who hadn't been tended to in a while. She was wearing a pink t-shirt and shorts that were slightly too large and one sandal. Just one. The right foot had a sandal, the left was bare. Her face, which he could see more clearly now that he was at her level, was the face of a child who was trying very hard to be brave about something. Brown eyes. Wide. Serious. The specific seriousness of a child who has been dealing with something that required seriousness and had been doing so for longer than a child should have to. He looked at her. "No," he said. Gently. As gently as he knew how to say anything, and he was not, by anyone's accounting, a gentleman by default. "I'm not your daddy, sweetheart. What's your name?" She looked at him for a moment, processed the answer to her question with the specific gravity of a child receiving important information. "Ren," she said. "Ren," he said. The name settled into him in a way he didn't examine yet. "That's a beautiful name. Ren, where are your parents?" She looked at the dark behind her, the direction she'd come from. "Mama's sleeping," she said. "She won't wake up." He was moving before the sentence finished. He turned back to look at the bar. Patrick was visible through the window, right there, and he banged on the glass hard enough to startle the room into attention and pointed at Patrick and held up one finger that said, "Come here." Now, the specific "now" that means this is real. Then he turned to Ren. "Can you show me where your mama is?" he said. She took his hand. She did it without hesitation, without the caution that children sometimes showed around strangers, which he noted and filed. The absence of caution was its own information. She took his hand and she led him toward the dark at the edge of the parking lot, toward what turned out to be a path. Not much of one, just a pressed grass path that ran along the edge of the highway's shoulder, and he followed her with the specific controlled urgency of someone managing their own alarm so as not to alarm someone else. Patrick was behind him in 30 seconds. He heard the crunch of Patrick's boots on the gravel. "What's happening?" Patrick said. "Child found in the parking lot," Walter said, low enough that Ren wouldn't hear the assessment in it. "She says her mom's sleeping and won't wake up. Might be nothing. Might not be." Patrick's footsteps changed rhythm. Faster. The path led to a car. It was parked 50 yards from the bar's lot, on the shoulder of the highway, half in the grass, parked in the particular diagonal way of someone who had not parked carefully, who had aimed at stopping and stopped wherever the aim landed. A small sedan, older, the kind of car that had been through a lot of weather. The driver's door was not fully closed. Walter went to the driver's side. He looked through the window first, because he'd learned certain things over 46 years, and one of them was that you looked before you opened. A woman was slumped against the driver's seat. Young. He couldn't tell how young in the dark and the way she was positioned, but young, the sense of her. Her chest was moving. He could see it moving. That was the first thing, the breath, the most important information. He opened the door carefully. The smell told him things. He looked at Patrick over the roof of the car. "Call 911, he said. Patrick already had his phone out. Walter looked at Ren, who was standing beside him holding onto his hand with both of hers now, which was a thing he felt with a specificity that was disproportionate to the size of it. "Your mama's going to be okay," he said. He didn't know that. He said it because it was what the moment required, and because he believed in saying the thing that needed to be true with enough conviction that it helped it become true. "She's going to be okay. You did really good finding someone." I walked a long time, Wren said. How long? He said. She looked at the highway. A long time, she said again, which was the answer of someone whose concept of time was not the adult's concept of time and who was being honest with the vocabulary available. You were very brave, he said. She looked up at him. The wide brown eyes. I looked for my daddy, she said. I thought if I found my daddy he could help. Walter felt something in his chest do something complicated. You found someone who can help, he said. That was the right idea. The ambulance arrived in 11 minutes. Walter had spent those 11 minutes in the way he spent most things, with the specific competence of someone for whom crisis was not a destabilizing state. He'd opened the car door fully and established that the woman was breathing, that her pulse was present. He'd talked to the 911 dispatcher with the efficient calm of someone who understood that calm was a tool in this situation and panic was the absence of the tool. He'd also spent those 11 minutes holding Wren's hand. She stayed beside him. She'd stopped asking questions and started watching, the watching of a child who was processing something too large for words, who had moved past the language phase of dealing with it and into the just being there phase. She held his hand and she watched her mother in the car, and she was, for a 5 or 6-year-old in this situation, extraordinarily still. That stillness told him things too. When the paramedics arrived, there was the moment he'd been managing toward, the moment when the professionals took over and the situation became theirs. He stepped back from the car. Let them work. Watched. He did not let go of Wren's hand. She showed no inclination to be let go of. A paramedic, a woman, young, competent, came to Wren. Hi there, she said. What's your name? Wren, she said. She was still looking at the car where the other paramedics were working on her mother. Hi, Wren. How old are you? Wren held up 5 fingers. Then thought about it. Then held up a 6th. Almost 6, the paramedic said. My birthday's next month, Wren said. The paramedic looked at Walter. The question in the look was clear. She walked to the bar parking lot, he said. I don't know from where exactly. She said her mother wouldn't wake up. He paused. I don't know the family. The paramedic nodded. We're going to need to contact Child Protective. I know, Walter said. He looked down at Wren. She was looking up at him. Are they going to fix Mama? She said. They're going to try very hard, he said. She processed this. Okay, she said. And the okay had in it the specific weight of a child who had been dealing with things by herself for a while and had developed the practice of accepting difficult information and continuing to stand. The woman's name was Breyer and Collins. The paramedics established this from the ID in her wallet. 27 years old. The car was registered to the same name at an address 11 miles away, which explained some of the walk. Not all of it. The address was 11 miles by road, but through the fields on the other side of the highway it was less. Maybe 4 miles. Maybe 3. A 3-mile walk in the dark for a 5-year-old. Walter stood at the edge of the ambulance activity, and he thought about that. About small bare feet on field grass and dirt roads in the July dark, walking toward the highway lights because lights meant people and people meant help. He thought about Wren saying, I looked for my daddy. He thought about that too. A police car arrived. Then another. There was the gathering of the situation into official hands, the process that Walter had seen happen many times, in various contexts, the taking over of events by the systems that were designed to take events over. A young officer named Sanderson came to him. Walter told him everything he knew, which was not a lot but was exact. He told it in the order it happened. He told it with the factual precision of someone who understood that an account, to be useful, needed to be accurate rather than interpretive. Sanderson wrote things down. "And the child," Sanderson said. "She walked to you specifically?" "She walked to the parking lot," Walter said. "I was standing outside. She came out of the dark and asked if I was her daddy." Sanderson looked at him. "Her daddy?" "Yes," Walter said. "And you're not?" "No." "Do you know her?" "I know her name is Wren, and she's almost 6 and her birthday's next month," Walter said. "That's everything I know." Sanderson looked at where Wren was sitting on the ambulance's back step with the young paramedic. She was eating something, a granola bar the paramedic had produced from somewhere, with the concentrated attention of someone who was hungry and was now less hungry, and this was the important thing happening. "Child Protective Services is on the way," Sanderson said. "They'll take custody until the mother's situation is established." "What happens to the mother?" Walter said. "She's going to the hospital," Sanderson said. "Her situation is serious. We'll know more." Walter looked at Wren on the ambulance step. "When CPS gets here," he said, "what happens to the girl tonight?" "Emergency placement," Sanderson said. "They have people on call." "Where?" "Wherever they have space," Sanderson said. He said it with the flat pragmatism of a man who had said it many times and knew how it sounded, and had to say it anyway because it was what was true. Walter looked at Wren. She had finished the granola bar. She was looking at the highway. Then, as if she felt his gaze, she turned and looked at him. She slid off the ambulance step and came to him. She took his hand again. "Are you going to stay?" she said. Walter looked at her. He looked at this almost 6-year-old girl with her tangled light brown hair and her one sandal and her wide brown eyes that had been through more tonight than any child should be through, who had walked 3 miles in the dark looking for her daddy and had found him, and it had been the wrong answer, but she had stayed anyway, had held on anyway. "Yeah," he said. "I'm going to stay." He stayed through the arrival of the CPS worker. Her name was Angela Rourke. She was 40-something, with a face that had the particular quality of someone who had been doing hard work for a long time and had developed the specific armor that hard work required. Professional, efficient, and underneath it, still present in the way of someone who had decided presence was non-negotiable regardless of what the armor cost her. She talked to Wren. She talked to Walter. She talked to Officer Sanderson. She made a phone call. Then she came back to Walter. "She won't let go of you," Angela said. This was an observation, not a complaint. She said it with the precise neutrality of someone noting a relevant fact. "No," Walter said. "That's actually," Angela paused. "It's significant. Children who've been in unstable situations for a while don't usually attach that quickly. Or that firmly." Walter looked at Wren, who was standing with her hand in his and watching the highway with a serious expression. "What do you know about the mother's situation?" Walter asked. "I know what the officer told me," Angela said. "Which is that this isn't the first call. The family has a case file." She paused. "I can't share the details." "I understand," Walter said. "The father is unknown," Angela said. "As a factor." Walter looked at the highway. "She walked 3 miles looking for him," he said. Angela was quiet. "I know," she said. "3 miles in the dark," Walter said. "For a 5-year-old. Almost 6, Angela said. Her birthday's next month." Something moved through Walter's face. He looked at this woman who had been told that too, who had already filed it in the same place he'd filed it. "Where are you taking her tonight?" he said. "I have a placement," Angela said. "A family on the west side. They're good people. She'll be safe." "Has she been in placement before?" Angela looked at him. The careful look of someone deciding how much to say. "I can't." "I know you can't," he said. "I'm asking as a... I don't know what I'm asking as. I'm asking because she walked 3 miles and found me, and that seems like something that shouldn't just be filed and processed." Angela looked at him for a long time. "No," she said quietly. "She hasn't been in placement before." He nodded. Wren tugged his hand. He looked down. "Is she taking me somewhere?" Wren said. She was looking at Angela with the assessment of a child who was following a conversation she wasn't supposed to be following. "She's going to take you somewhere safe for tonight," Walter said, "while the doctors help your mama." Wren looked at him. "Will you come?" she said. The question was simple. The answer was not. He crouched down to her level again. He looked at her face, the wide brown eyes, the serious expression, the one sandal. "I can't come tonight," he said. "But I want to tell you something." She waited. "You were very brave tonight," he said. "Walking all that way. Finding help. That was incredibly brave." He paused. "And your mama is being taken care of by people who know how to help her. And you're going to be in a safe place. And tomorrow—" He stopped. He made a decision. He looked at Angela over Wren's head. "Can I get your contact information?" he said, as someone following up. Angela looked at him. She gave him her card. "What's your interest?" she said. Formally. Walter looked at Wren. Then back at Angela. "I'm a person who was in the right place tonight," he said. "I'm not going to be the person who processes that and moves on." Angela held his gaze for a moment. "My number's on the card," she said. "Call tomorrow morning." Patrick drove him home. They drove the 30 miles to Walter's house in the particular silence of people who had been through something together and didn't need to fill the silence with commentary on it. The highway was empty at this hour, just the headlights on the road and the night on either side and the low sound of the truck's engine. Walter looked out the passenger window. He thought about Wren's hand in his. The smallness of it. He thought about, "Are you my daddy?" He thought about 3 miles of dark field. Patrick drove without asking questions. Patrick Doane had been Walter's closest friend in the chapter for 18 years, and Patrick had a specific gift that Walter valued above most things in a person, the gift of knowing when a thing needed to be talked about and when it needed to be let alone to settle. At Walter's driveway, Patrick stopped the truck. Walter got out. He walked to his door. He stood at his door with his keys in his hand and the July dark around him and the sound of the truck pulling away at his back. He went inside. He sat in his kitchen. He was 46 years old. He had lived alone for 14 years. He had been divorced for 14 years, a divorce that had been painful and mutual and had produced no children because he and Rachel had been unable to have children, which was a fact he had made his peace with over the 14 years since and carried the way you carried certain facts, not heavily, but not weightlessly either. He sat in his kitchen at 1:30 in the morning, and he thought about a 5-year-old girl with a bare left foot walking through dark fields toward the highway lights. He sat there for a long time. Then he went to bed. He did not sleep for a long time. He called Angela Rourke at 8 in the morning. She answered on the second ring, which suggested she had already been at work for a while. "I wondered if you'd call," she said. "I said I would," he said. "People say things at 1 in the morning in a parking lot," she said. "By morning they sometimes recalibrate." "I don't recalibrate," he said. A brief pause. "The mother is in the hospital," Angela said. "She's stable. It's going to be a process." "What kind of process?" "The kind that takes time," Angela said. There are several things going on with Ms. Collins. The situation last night wasn't an isolated incident." "How's Wren?" Another pause. "She's okay. She's with the placement family. She asked about you this morning." Walter was quiet. "What did she ask?" he said. "She asked if the man from the parking lot was coming," Angela said. "The big man. The one with the gray beard." Those were her words. Walter put his coffee down. "What did you tell her?" he said. "I told her I didn't know," Angela said. "I want to ask you something, Mr. Colt." "Walter," he said. "Walter, what is it you're thinking about doing here?" He had thought about this. He'd thought about it through the night and through the morning, through the coffee he'd made and the shower he'd taken and the drive to his shop and the sitting at his desk before calling. "I'm thinking about not being the person who disappears," he said. "That's not a plan," Angela said. "No," he agreed. "I don't have a plan. I have an instinct, and I've learned to trust my instincts." "Your instinct is that you should be involved in this child's situation." "My instinct is that she walked 3 miles in the dark and found me, and I told her I was going to stay, and I meant it." Angela was quiet. "Do you have any background with children?" she said. "Experience. Work." "My sister's 3 kids," he said. "Ages 7 to 16. I see them regularly. He paused. "I'm good with kids. I don't have any of my own. That's not from lack of wanting." "I know about your background," Angela said. He started to ask, and she said, "I did some research this morning. And I'm looking at a man with no record, a stable business, an address he's been at for 11 years. A reputation in the community that I've confirmed through 2 phone calls." She paused. "I'm also looking at a child with no father on the record, a mother in the hospital with a complicated situation, and an emergency placement that's appropriate but not permanent." "What are you saying?" he said. "I'm saying I'd like you to come and meet with me," she said. "This afternoon. I'd like to talk through what involvement looks like, what the process is, what the possibilities are." She paused. "I'm not promising anything. I want to be clear about that." "I know," he said. "I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for the conversation." 2 o'clock, she said. "My office on Meridian Street." He told Patrick before the meeting. He called him in the morning, direct, because Patrick was the person he told things to before he acted on them. Not because he needed permission, but because Patrick's particular intelligence was good at catching things Walter's didn't. Patrick listened. "You barely know her," Patrick said. "The kid." "I know," Walter said. "You talked to her for 20 minutes in a parking lot." "I know." and you're going to meet with a CPS worker to talk about not being the person who disappears, Walter said. Patrick was quiet. You've been alone for 14 years, he said. Yes. And now a 5-year-old asks you if you're her dad and you're almost 6, Walter said. Her birthday's next month. Patrick stopped. You know when her birthday is, Patrick said. She told me, Walter said. I retained it. Patrick was quiet for a longer moment. Walter, he said. Yeah. Be careful. I'm always careful. Not like this, Patrick said. Not with something like this. You can be careful with a deal and careful with a job and careful on the road. This is different careful. I know, Walter said. Because if you start something and then... I know, Patrick. She's already attached. I know, Walter said. That's why I'm going. Angela Rourke's office was the kind of office that told you things about the person in it, not from deliberate decoration, but from the accumulation of practical objects over time. Files, yes. A computer. The procedural infrastructure of a job that ran on paperwork. But also, a small plant on the corner of the desk that had been there long enough to become substantial. A photograph on the wall, a group of people at something outdoor, summer, the specific happiness of a moment that someone had decided to keep. A bowl of candy on the corner, the kind of office candy bowl that existed not for the person at the desk, but for the people who sat across from the desk, some of whom needed a small thing to hold while the larger things were discussed. Walter sat across from the desk. Angela looked at him. She was a professional woman in her mid-40s, and in a different context he might have tried to read her, but in this context she was reading him and he let her, because he had nothing to hide and hiding would have been the wrong signal. Tell me about yourself, she said. Not the record, not the background I already have. Tell me. He thought about where to start. I'm 46, he said. I've been in this town since I was 22. I came for a job and I stayed because I found something worth staying for. The club, which I know is a thing you have a file on, and my business and the people here. I was married for 6 years, starting in my early 30s. It ended well, as those things go. We were good people in the wrong configuration, and we both understood that when it became clear. No children, which was not what we wanted. She remarried. I didn't. Angela listened without writing. I work, he said. I run a welding company. It's real work. 7 people depend on it. I take that seriously. He paused. I ride motorcycles. I've been in the club for 21 years. I know what that looks like from outside. I know what people assume. The people who've actually needed us in this community know what we are. He stopped. Last night, he said, a child came out of the dark and asked me a question. And something happened. He thought about how to say the next part. I've been empty in a specific way for 14 years. Not unhappy. Not without purpose. But empty in the place where a child would have been, if things had been different. And last night something walked out of the dark and put its hand in mine and... He stopped. I know that's not an argument. I know that sounds like something that could be about my need rather than hers. I know the danger in that. Angela looked at him. You know the danger in it, she said. I've been thinking about it all night, he said. Examining it. Whether what I feel is about her or about what she represents to me. What did you conclude? That it's both, he said. and that it doesn't have to be one or the other. That the reason I'm here can include both without either one disqualifying the other. He looked at the desk. She needed help. She walked until she found it. I'm in a position to offer something real. Those three things are true regardless of what I feel about the specific shape of the need. Angela was quiet for a long moment. She looked at a file on her desk. Briar Collins, she said. 27 years old. Wren's father is not on the birth certificate, and there is no named father in the case file. Briar has struggled with substance dependency since she was 19. She's had periods of recovery, 2 significant ones. She loves her daughter. I want to say that clearly. This is not a case of a mother who doesn't love her child. I know that, Walter said. You do. Wren loves her, he said. You can see it. She walked 3 miles to get help for her. You don't do that for someone you're not attached to. Something moved through Angela's expression. Briar is going to be in the hospital for at least 2 weeks, Angela said. And then she'll need a structured program. The program we're looking at is 90 days minimum, possibly longer, depending on progress. So Wren needs somewhere for 3 months minimum, Angela said. The placement family she's with now is a good family. They have 2 other children in placement, and the capacity is going to reach a limit. I can keep Wren there for the short term. For the longer term, she paused. I'm looking at options. Walter looked at her. What do I need to do? He said. Angela looked at him for a long time. There's a process, she said. It's not fast. There's a home study, background checks beyond what I've already run, training requirements. It's not something that happens because someone wants it to. I understand process, he said. Tell me the process and I'll do it. Even if it takes time. Even if Wren is in the placement family for another month while the process runs. The process matters, he said. Doing it right matters. I'm not trying to shortcut anything. Angela looked at her plant, then back at him. I'm going to tell you something, she said. Off the record as much as anything in my job is off the record. He waited. In 20 years of this work, I have had maybe 6 times where I've been very confident early, she said. Where something in the situation said, this is going to be okay, this is the right thing. Not often. The job doesn't let you trust that feeling often because the job has disappointed it too many times. She looked at him. I have that feeling right now, she said. I'm not acting on it uncritically. I'm going to follow every procedure. But I want you to know it. Walter looked at her. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me yet, she said. Go start the paperwork. He saw Wren for the first time since the parking lot on Saturday. Angela had arranged it, a visit, structured, at the placement family's house, supervised. He'd spent the intervening 3 days doing the first wave of paperwork and making the phone calls and starting the process that had to be started. He drove to the address on Oak Street. He sat in his truck for a minute before going in. He thought about what he was walking into. He'd been thinking about it for 3 days with the specific thoroughness he brought to things that mattered. He'd talked to Patrick again, a longer conversation this time, about the full shape of it. He'd called his sister, Clara, who had the 3 kids and who had listened, and then said, Walter, sometimes things happen. You don't always get to understand them before you act on them. He got out of the truck. He knocked on the door. The woman who answered was the placement family mother. Her name was Diane. She was in her 50s, warm in a practical way. She looked at Walter with the assessment of someone who was careful about what came into contact with the children in her care. She let him in. Wren was in the living room. She was sitting on the floor with some books, picture books, spread around her in the particular arrangement of a child who had been organizing things. She looked up when he came in. For a moment, she just looked at him. Then she said, "You came." "I said I would," he said. She got up from the floor. She walked to him. She stood in front of him and looked up at him with the wide brown eyes, and she said, with the directness of a child who had decided on the truth as her policy, "I thought you wouldn't come." "I came," he said. "Okay," she said. The weight of relief in the single syllable was not subtle. He sat down on the floor, because the couch was adult height and she was not adult height, and he'd learned from his sister's kids that floor level was the right level for certain conversations. She sat down across from him. "How's your foot?" he said. She'd been checked by the paramedics. No significant cuts or injuries from the walk, which had seemed like a small miracle. "Fine," she said. She looked at her feet. She was wearing both sandals now. "They found my other one in Mama's car." "Good," he said. She looked at him. "Is Mama okay?" she said. He had thought about how to answer this. He'd thought about what was true and what was appropriate and what would help a 5, almost 6-year-old process a difficult situation. "Your mama is getting help," he said. "The doctors are taking care of her. She's going to need some time to get better. But she loves you very much. She loves you more than anything." Wren absorbed this. "She cries about me sometimes," Wren said. "When she thinks I'm sleeping." Walter looked at her. "She cries because she loves you," he said. "Sometimes when you love someone very much and you're having a hard time, you cry." Wren thought about this. "I cried when I was walking," she said. "When it was dark and I couldn't see very well. But then I saw the lights on the road and I thought, lights mean people and people can help." "That was smart thinking," Walter said. "I was scared," she said. "But I kept going." He looked at her. This girl who was almost 6 years old and who had made a decision in the dark that had required a kind of courage most adults he knew would have had trouble accessing. "Wren," he said, "I want to ask you something." She waited. "Would you like me to come visit you? While your mama is getting better? While you're staying here?" She looked at him with the direct assessment she had. "Every day," she said. "As many days as I can," he said. "Not every single day. I have work. But many days." "What kind of work?" "I build things," he said. "I weld metal together to make things." She considered this. "What kind of things?" "Structures," he said. "Railings, stairs, frames for buildings. Things that need to be strong and last a long time." She thought about this. "Can I see?" she said. "What?" "Can I see where you work sometime?" she said. "I've never seen someone make things with metal." He looked at her. "Yeah," he said. "You can see where I work." She looked satisfied. "Okay," she said. "You can visit." He almost smiled. "Thank you," he said. She looked at him with the wide brown eyes. "What's your name?" she said. "Walter," he said. "Walter," she said, trying it out the way a child tried out a word that was unfamiliar. "That's an old-fashioned name." "I know," he said. My great-grandpa was named Walter, she said. Mama told me. That's a good name to share, he said. She looked at the books spread on the floor. Then back at him. Are you going to read to me? She said. He looked at the books. Which one? He said. She picked up a book about a bear and a small forest and a question the bear was trying to answer. She handed it to him with the gravity of someone making a significant selection. He read it. He read it in the careful way, not performing, not doing a character voice, just reading it the way the book wanted to be read. He read it, and she sat beside him and leaned in the way of a child who was listening to a story, the lean of someone who trusted the person reading to them. He read it twice because she asked him to. The weeks that followed were the weeks of slow things. The process moved at the pace that processes moved. Background checks and home study and the required training and the forms and the interviews and Angela checking in and the placement and the visits and the specific incremental work of building something where nothing had been before. Walter went to see Wren 3 times a week. On Tuesdays and Thursdays he went after work. He'd leave the shop at 4 and be at Oak Street by 4:30, and he'd stay for 2 hours. On Saturdays he went in the morning and stayed longer. He read her books. He answered her questions, which were many and specific and ranged widely, about welding and motorcycles and why the sky was blue and what stars were made of and what his dog's name was. He didn't have a dog, which she found confusing, as she had understood him to be a person who would have a dog, and whether he'd ever been to the ocean and what he thought about when he was thinking about nothing. He brought her things. Not big things. He was careful about this, because Angela had said to be careful about overloading with material things, that it wasn't what was needed. He brought her a book about birds because she'd told him she liked birds, that she could name 5 birds and wanted to know more. He brought her a small set of colored pencils because Diane had mentioned she liked to draw. He brought her, on a Thursday 3 weeks in, a small stuffed bear that was so clearly the right kind of small stuffed bear that Wren held it for a long moment before naming it William. "Why William?" he asked. "Because he looks like he has things to say," she said. "People named William always have things to say." He could not argue with this logic. He also visited Briar. The first visit was arranged by Angela and was, at Briar's request, brief. She was in a facility 30 miles away, a proper one, a residential program, the kind that took people seriously and built their recovery around serious things. She looked like Wren. That was the first thing he thought when he met her. The same wide brown eyes, the same something in the face, the same facing forward quality that Wren had in the parking lot, the quality of someone looking at the situation with full attention rather than flinching. She was 27 years old, and she had not been doing well for several years, and she knew it, said it, with the same directness Wren had. "She asked you if you were her dad," Briar said. "Yes," Walter said. "She asks," Briar said quietly. "She's been asking since she understood that some kids had dads and she didn't. She asks people sometimes." She paused. "I never thought she'd walk to the highway to find one." Walter looked at her. "She's remarkable," he said. Briar looked at him with an expression that contained everything: love and grief and the specific pain of someone confronting their own failures while also being confronted with the evidence of what they'd gotten right. "She is," she said. "She's the best thing I've ever done." "She loves you very much," Walter said. "I know," Briar said. "She told me." She looked at her hands. "She calls every Sunday. Angela set it up. She calls and she tells me everything that happened that week, and she describes the books Walter read her, and she says, 'Mama, he came again. He said he'd come and he came.'" Walter was quiet. "Why are you doing this?" Briar said. It was the question he'd been asked many times by now, and the answer was the same honest, complicated, insufficient answer. "Because she walked out of the dark," he said, "and she put her hand in mine, and I told her I was going to stay." Briar looked at him. "She'll remember everything," she said. "She's got a memory like a file cabinet. She will remember everything you do." "I know," he said. "I'm counting on that." August came. With it, Wren's birthday. She turned 6 on a Thursday. Walter had asked Angela what was appropriate, and Angela had said what Wren wanted, which Angela knew because Wren had told her, clearly and specifically, which was a birthday party with cake and the specific people who mattered to her. The specific people who mattered to her were, as of August, a list that included Diane and Diane's husband Roy and the 2 other children currently in Diane's care and Angela and Walter. Walter organized it. He did not ask for help. Then he called Patrick, and Patrick showed up with his wife Connie, and between the 3 of them they organized a birthday party for a 6-year-old that was, by objective assessment, extremely good. Cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting, which Wren had specified as the correct combination when Walter asked. Balloons, green and yellow, which were her specified colors. A banner that Patrick had made from paper that said "Happy Birthday Wren" in block letters that were imperfect and entirely sincere. A small pile of gifts that followed Angela's guidance. Nothing overwhelming, things that were real and considered. Walter's gift was a journal. The kind with a good cover, a bird on it, a wren, specifically, which he'd found at a bookstore in the city. He'd written in the front cover, the first page, in the handwriting that was large and slightly uneven because he was better at building things than at writing, for Wren, who walked toward the light. "Happy 6th birthday, Walter." She opened it at the table. She read what he'd written. She was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at him. The wide brown eyes. "You put my name in it," she said. "It's your journal," he said. "And your name," she said. "Because I gave it to you," he said. She held it carefully. She ran her hand over the bird on the cover, the wren on the cover, though she didn't know yet that's what it was. "What bird is this?" she said. He looked at her. "A wren," he said. She looked at the bird. Then at him. "That's me," she said. "Yes," he said. She held the journal against her chest with both arms, the specific grip of someone holding something they have decided matters. "Thank you," she said. She said it with the gravity that she brought to things that deserved gravity, which was different from the automatic thank you of a child performing courtesy. This was the real one. "Happy birthday, Wren," he said. Patrick and Connie sang. Diane and Roy and the other children sang. Angela sang in the slightly off-key way of someone who was not a singer but was fully committed to the activity. Walter sang in the low, slightly reluctant way of a man who did not typically sing and was making an exception. Wren sat at the table with her journal and her chocolate cake and William the bear, and she looked around at the people who had come to her birthday, and she looked last at Walter. "This is a good birthday," she said. "Yes," he said. "It is." September. He was approved for foster placement. The approval came through Angela's office, and she called him on a Tuesday afternoon while he was under a project at the shop, and he came out and she told him, and he stood in the yard of his welding shop with grease on his hands, and he was quiet for a moment that was different from his usual silences. "Are you there?" Angela said. "I'm here," he said. "The placement can happen when you're ready," she said. "There are some additional preparations." "I've been preparing since August," he said. The house is. He'd spent August on the house. He'd painted the second bedroom the color Wren had told him she liked when he'd asked, which was a blue-green she described as the color of the shallow part of the ocean. He'd put shelves up. He'd assembled a bed frame from a kit, which had humbled him considerably because he could weld structural steel, but a flat-pack bed frame had specific requirements that he found philosophically challenging. He'd put up a curtain with small birds on it. He'd gotten a bookshelf and filled part of it and left room for more. "The house is ready," he said. "I know," Angela said. "I've done the home study." "When?" he said. "Friday," she said. "If you want to tell her." He wanted to tell her himself. Angela agreed. He went to Oak Street on Thursday evening. Wren was at the table when he arrived, working on a drawing. She was, at 6 years and 1 month, already a serious drawer. She'd gone through most of the colored pencil's length in 5 weeks, and he'd brought another set, and she was going through those. She looked up when he came in. "You're here on a Thursday," she said. Thursdays were one of his days, but she greeted him with a specific note of someone confirming that the pattern had held. "I have something to tell you," he said. She put down the pencil. She looked at him with the full attention she gave to things that mattered. He sat down at the table. "You know, I've been doing some things," he said. "Some paperwork and some processes." "Angela told me," she said. "She said you were working on something." "I've been working on being able to have you come stay with me," he said, "while your mama is getting better. So you have somewhere that's yours." Wren was very still. "Your house," she said. "My house," he said. "The second bedroom. I painted it. The color you told me you liked. The ocean one." She looked at him. "You painted a room for me," she said. "Yes." "My color." "Yes." She was quiet. "Can I see it?" she said. "Tomorrow," he said. Angela said Friday. She looked at her drawing, then back at him. "Walter," she said. "Yeah." She was working toward something. He could see it, the gathering of words, the careful construction of something she wanted to say right. "That first night," she said, "when I walked to the highway." "Yes," he said. "I asked you if you were my daddy," she said. "I remember," he said. "And you said no," she said. "I said no," he agreed. She looked at him with the wide brown eyes that held everything. "But you stayed," she said. He held her gaze. "Yes," he said. "I stayed." She nodded. Not the nod of someone who had gotten the answer they wanted, the nod of someone who had confirmed something they already knew. "Okay," she said. She picked up her colored pencil. She went back to her drawing. Friday. He picked her up at 9 in the morning. She came out of Diane's house with her small bag, all her things, the books and the colored pencils and William the bear and the journal, and she stood by his truck and looked at it with the expression she had for new things. "It's big," she said. "Trucks are big," he said. "Do you always drive a truck?" "Mostly. Sometimes I ride my motorcycle." She looked at him. "Can I ride on it someday?" He thought about Angela's probable response to this question. "When you're older," he said. "Much older." She considered this. "How much older?" "Old enough to appreciate it properly," he said. This seemed to satisfy her. She got in the truck. He drove to Birchwood Road. He pulled into the driveway. She looked at the house through the windshield. It was a reasonable house. He had not had a specific eye for houses. He'd bought it because it had a workshop space in the back that was useful, and because it was structurally sound, and because the price was right. He had not thought about its appearance much in 11 years of living in it. In the past 6 weeks, he had thought about its appearance quite a bit. He'd painted the front door a dark green because it had needed painting, and dark green seemed dignified. He'd fixed the front steps properly, which they had needed for 2 years. He'd done some things in the yard that he hadn't gotten around to in 11 years because nobody but him had occasion to care. Wren looked at the house. "It's nice," she said. "It's home," he said. She looked at him. "For now," she said. She was asking about the temporary nature of things, the careful understanding she'd developed, the understanding of a child who had learned not to assume permanence. "For now," he said. "And for as long as you need." She opened the truck door. She walked up the newly fixed front steps. He unlocked the door. She went inside. She stood in the hallway and looked around, the living room to the left, the kitchen at the back, the stairs to the right. "The room," she said. "Upstairs," he said. She went up the stairs. He followed. The door to the second bedroom was closed. He'd painted that too, the door itself, the same dark green as the front door, because it seemed right to mark the thing as a thing. She put her hand on the door handle. She looked at him. He nodded. She opened the door. The room was blue-green. Not a strong blue-green, a quiet one, the color of shallow water over sand, the color she described when he asked. The curtains with the small birds. The shelves with the books. The bed with a quilt he'd gotten from his sister Clara, who had come over the previous weekend and helped with this in the way of someone who understood that quilts were not the kind of thing you bought from a store for this particular purpose. The bookshelf, partly full, with room. Wren walked into the room. She walked to the window. She looked out at the backyard. She turned around. She looked at everything. The methodical look of someone taking inventory. She looked at him in the doorway. "You made this for me," she said. "Yes," he said. She went to the bookshelf. She ran her hand along the spines of the books. She went to the window and looked out again. She went to the bed and sat on the edge of it. She sat on the edge of the bed in the room that was her color, and she held William the bear in her lap, and she looked at Walter in the doorway. "It's the right color," she said. "I'm glad," he said. "You got the color right," she said. "I thought maybe it would be different when I saw it. But it's exactly right." He looked at the walls. He'd done 3 coats to get the depth right. He'd taken the color card from the store and held it at different times of day and looked at how the light changed it. "I worked on it," he said. She looked at the journal on the desk. She'd put it there when she came in, first thing, placed it on the desk where there was a small lamp. "Can I put my bird on the shelf?" she said. She meant the bird drawing she'd done at Diane's, a bird she'd been working on for 2 weeks, carefully, in colored pencils. "Of course," he said. She got up. She went to her bag. She took out the drawing, which she'd kept in a folder to protect it. She put it on the shelf, leaning against the books. She stepped back and looked at it. "Good," she said. She sat back on the bed. "Walter," she said. "Yeah," he said. "Are you scared?" she said. He was not expecting the question, which was the thing about this child. She asked the questions that most people talked around. "A little," he said honestly. "Me too," she said. "What are you scared of?" he said. She thought about it. "That something will change," she said. that this will be good and then change. He came and sat in the chair beside the bookshelf. The chair he'd put there for exactly this kind of conversation, which he'd known would come. "Things change," he said. "I can't promise they won't. Your mama is going to get better and things will change then. You'll go to school and things will change. I can't promise things stay exactly the same." She looked at him. "What can you promise?" she said. He thought about it with the seriousness it deserved. "I can promise that when I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'll be there," he said. "I can promise that this room is yours for as long as you need it. I can promise that I'm going to show up. Not because I have to. Because you walked out of the dark and asked me a question and I decided to stay." She looked at him. "That night," she said, "when I walked to the road, I was really scared." "I know," he said. "But I kept thinking, if I can find my daddy, he'll fix it," she said. "That's what daddies do. They fix things." He held her gaze. "Sometimes they do," he said. She looked at William the bear. "You're not my daddy," she said. "No," he said. "But you stayed," she said. "I stayed." She looked at the room. At the blue-green walls and the bird curtains and the books on the shelf and her drawing. "That's something," she said. "That's everything," he said. She looked at him. "Okay," she said. The word she used when she decided something. The word that closed the assessment and opened the next thing. She put William on the pillow. She looked at the bookshelf. "Will you read to me tonight?" she said. "Yes," he said. "Which book?" "You choose," he said. She went to the shelf. She considered with the gravity of someone making an important decision. She pulled out the bird book he'd given her, the one she'd already read 4 times. She held it out. "This one," she said. "I want to learn all the birds." He took the book. He sat in the chair. She sat on the bed, cross-legged, William beside her. He opened the book. The months that followed had the quality of real things, not the narrative arc of something being constructed, but the irregular, specific, imperfect quality of life actually being lived. Wren started school in September. First grade, at Jefferson Elementary, which was 6 blocks from Birchwood Road and which Walter drove her to every morning, first in the truck and then, as September warmed into the last warmth before autumn, sometimes on his bicycle, his actual bicycle, the one he kept in the workshop, not the motorcycle. She rode on a seat he'd installed on the back of it, and she held on to the sides, and she watched the neighborhood go past with the expression of someone taking the world seriously. School was good. She was good at it, better than she knew, in the early weeks, because she'd had inconsistent schooling before and didn't know how to assess her own ability. Her teacher, a woman named Ms. Caldwell, called Walter in October. "I want to talk to you about Wren," she said. Walter went in with the specific preparation of someone managing his alarm. Ms. Caldwell was 30-something and had a face that suggested she'd been teaching for a while and had learned to lead with the information that was most important. "She's exceptional," Ms. Caldwell said. Walter was quiet for a moment. "In what way?" he said. "In several ways," Ms. Caldwell said. Her language, the vocabulary she uses, the way she constructs sentences, it's significantly advanced. She asks questions that go further than I expect. She remembers everything. She paused. "But what I really wanted to talk to you about is something different." "What?" "She draws," Ms. Caldwell said. She pulled out a folder. "During free time. Focused, deliberate drawing. Look at these." She spread the drawings on her desk. Walter looked at them. They were birds. Specifically, they were detailed birds, not the approximate scribbled birds of a 6-year-old's early attempts, but something more considered. The proportions were not perfect, but the intention was clear, and in several of them there was something that made you stop. "She's 6 years old," Ms. Caldwell said. "I know," Walter said. This level of observation at 6, the specificity of the detail, this is unusual. Walter looked at the drawings. He thought about the bird book, about the evenings when he read it to her and she asked questions, specific, precise questions about the shape of wings and the length of tails, and he answered what he could and looked up what he couldn't. About the small field guide he'd bought in October because the original book wasn't detailed enough for her questions. "She's been studying them," he said. "I can see that," Ms. Caldwell said. He looked at the drawings. He thought about her drawing on the shelf in her room, about the expression she had when she was working on something, the total focus, the specific concentration of someone who was doing the thing they were made for. "She's going to be something," he said. He said it the way you said things that were true before you fully understood how true they were. Ms. Caldwell looked at him. "She already is," she said. October brought the first visit with Briar. Wren had been calling her mother every Sunday since August, the calls Angela had arranged, 20 minutes, structured. She'd been talking about them with Walter in the way she talked about important things, carefully, with the seriousness she brought to careful things. "Mama sounds better," she'd said in September. "Yeah," he said. "Her voice is different," she said. "Like she has more of herself in it." He had heard, in those 7 words, the specific understanding of a 6-year-old who had learned to read her mother's condition through the quality of her voice. The kind of knowledge a child shouldn't have had to accumulate. The visit was at a neutral space, a room at the facility, comfortable, with sofas and a table and the specific design of a space that was trying to feel not clinical. Walter brought Wren and waited in the hallway. He heard, through the door that was not fully closed, the first 30 seconds. Briar's voice saying her daughter's name. Wren's voice saying Mama. Then the specific sound of 2 people holding each other that needs no further description. He walked to the end of the hallway. He stood at the window and looked at the facility's courtyard. He thought about what he was doing, about the specific shape of it, the 3 parties and what each of them needed and what the future looked like from here. He'd talked to Angela about this extensively, about Briar's progress, which was real, about what December might look like, and then January, and then the longer arc. He thought about Wren saying Mama sounds better, like she has more of herself in it. He wanted Briar to have more of herself in her voice. He wanted that completely, without the complicated reservation he might have been entitled to feel. The person who had been raising her daughter for 2 months might have felt the return of the mother as a loss of something. He didn't feel that. He'd thought about why and arrived at the answer that made sense, because this was about Wren, and what was best for Wren was a mother who was present and well. After 45 minutes, Wren opened the door. She came to find him. She took his hand. "She wants to meet you," she said. He went back to the room. Briar was standing when he came in. She was younger than she looked in his memory. The hospital had aged her in the image he'd retained, but here, after 2 months in a program, she looked closer to her actual 27. She had Wren's eyes, which was vertiginous in a specific way, the eyes he'd been looking at for 2 months, on this different face, older and carrying more. She looked at him. "She talks about you every Sunday," she said. "I know," he said. Angela had told him. "She told me about the bird book," she said. "And the room. She told me about the birthday party." She paused. "She told me you read to her every night." "I do," he said. Briar looked at him for a moment. "She asked you if you were her daddy," she said. "Yes," he said. "I'm sorry about that," she said. "She's been—" "Don't be sorry," he said. "She was brave. She walked 3 miles and asked for help, and she found it." He paused. "The question she asked, I'm not her father. But I'm something. I'm still working out what to call it." Briar looked at her daughter, who was standing beside Walter with her hand in his. "She trusts you," Briar said. It was an observation and an acknowledgment and something else. The something else that was a mother assessing the person her child had attached to and finding the assessment complicated but not negative. "I know," he said. "I take that seriously." "I can see that you do," she said. They looked at each other for a moment. "I want to be her mother," Briar said. "I need you to know that. What happened, the situation she's in, I'm not. I'm fighting to be her mother in the way she deserves." "I know," he said. "And she knows. She knows you're fighting." Briar pressed her lips together. "December," she said. "Angela says December," he said. "And then—" She asked it with the specific question of someone asking about the future while being uncertain of their right to ask about it. "And then we figure out the next thing," he said. "Together. Whatever that looks like, that's the conversation to have when December comes." Wren was looking between them. "Are you going to be friends?" she said. Walter looked at Briar. Briar looked at Walter. "We're going to try," Walter said. "Good," Wren said. With finality. November. He was 46 years old, and he had a 6-year-old girl who lived in the blue-green room at the top of the stairs, and who read bird field guides with the focused intensity of a natural scientist, and who drew birds that made her teacher call in parents for conferences, and who said okay when she decided something, and whose birthday was in August, and who named stuffed animals after people who had things to say. He was 46 years old, and he had a routine. Wren turned from her mother. She looked at Walter. She held out her hand, not asking him to come, just holding it out. The gesture of inclusion. The gesture of someone who had decided that the people in her life were not in separate categories. He walked to the courtyard. He shook Briar's hand. She shook his. Wren stood between them and took a hand of each. She looked up at them both. "Okay," she said. Christmas was at Birchwood Road. This was a decision that had emerged from the conversation between Walter and Briar and Angela that had happened the week of Briar's release. The conversation about the next thing, the practical shape of how the various pieces fit together. Briar was going to a transitional housing apartment on the west side, part of the program's aftercare. She had a job starting in January, administrative work, manageable hours. The plan was structured, and Angela was involved, and it was a plan built from real things. Wren would live with Briar in the apartment. She would also spend time on Birchwood Road, weekends, when Briar was working or when Wren wanted to. The room remained hers. The bird curtains remained. William the bear remained on the pillow when she wasn't there, which she'd specified. Christmas was going to be at Birchwood Road because Birchwood Road had more space, and because Wren had told both of them that she wanted everyone in the same place for Christmas, and the adults had looked at each other and agreed. Patrick and Connie came. Walter's sister Clara and her family came. Her 3 kids, who were 14 and 11 and 7, The 7-year-old, a girl named Rosie, who found Wren immediately and spent the afternoon in the bird room looking at drawings and field guides with the intensity of a new friend. Briar came with a dish she'd made, something she'd learned in the facility's cooking program, a sweet potato thing that Walter had 3 servings of. She navigated the room with the specific care of someone who was still learning how to be in the world again, and Walter watched her navigate it, and watched her find her footing, and thought about the word brave in the context of the specific daily courage of getting up and doing the thing. Dinner was loud and crowded in the way of real family gatherings. The specific mess and noise, and talking over each other, and laughing at things that weren't that funny, and the particular warmth of people who had chosen to be in the same room. Wren sat at the table between Walter and her mother. After dinner, the children scattered to various rooms, and the adults settled into the living room, and Walter found himself standing at the window with his coffee looking at the December dark. Patrick came to stand with him. "For months," Patrick said. "July to December," Walter said. "You've changed," Patrick said. Walter looked at his reflection in the window. The gray beard. The dark eyes that people found difficult to read. "Maybe," he said. "Not maybe," Patrick said. "You walk different." Walter looked at his friend of 18 years. "Walk different. Like you know where you're going," Patrick said. Walter thought about that. He thought about July and standing in the parking lot at 11:47 needing air. He thought about the specific silence of a man who had been alone for 14 years and had made peace with the shape of that and understood himself to be, if not happy, then complete in his particular form of completeness. He thought about the sound of small feet on gravel. "A kid walked out of the dark," he said. "A kid walked out of the dark," Patrick agreed. "Asked me a question. And you stayed." "And I stayed," Walter said. Patrick was quiet. From the bird room upstairs, the sound of Wren and Rosie, 2 small voices, specific and distinct, talking about something with great intensity. "She's going to be something," Patrick said. "She already is," Walter said. He thought about Ms. Caldwell saying it. The drawings on the teacher's desk. The birds drawn with the attention of someone who had decided the world was worth looking at closely. He thought about the question, "Are you my daddy?" He thought about the answer he'd given, "No," and the action that had followed the answer, which was the truer response to the question than the word itself. He thought about the journal in the blue-green room with his name in it. Walter. He thought about the birthday in August and the party and the chocolate cake. He thought about a small hand in his and a walk in the dark and the lights of the highway. "She walked toward the lights," he said. "What?" Patrick said. "She walked toward the lights," Walter said. "She said that's what she did. She saw the lights on the highway and she walked toward them because lights mean people and people can help." Patrick looked at him. "And she found you," Patrick said. "She found me," Walter said. He held his coffee. He stood at the window on Christmas night, and he looked at the December dark, and he thought about how you could be one thing for 46 years, solid, present, doing real work, living a real life, and something could walk out of the dark on a Tuesday night in July and find the specific space in your life that had been waiting, not obviously, not loudly, but waiting in the way that certain spaces waited, ready to be the right shape for the right thing when it arrived. Wren appeared in the living room doorway. She was in her Christmas pajamas, the ones Clara had given her, with the small birds on them, which was now apparently the theme of everything in her life, and Walter had no complaints. She looked at him across the room. "Are you sad?" she said. "No," he said. "You look like you're thinking about something," she said. "I am," he said. "But it's a good something." She looked at him. What? He looked at her across the room. About July, he said. About you walking to the highway. She came across the room and stood beside him at the window. She looked out at the December dark. I was scared, she said. I told you. I know, he said. But I kept walking, she said. You kept walking, he said. She looked at the dark. Then at him. I'm glad I kept walking, she said. He looked at her. 6 years old, in Christmas pajamas with small birds, standing at his window on Christmas night, looking at the December dark without fear. Me too, he said. She took his hand. She held it the way she had in the parking lot, with both of hers, the specific grip of someone who had decided this was where they were holding on. Outside, the December dark was exactly what it was. The highway was out there, for miles east. The fields were there, the fields she'd walked through in July. The bridge where the lighting wasn't great. The parking lot of the Rusty Anchor where a man had been standing outside needing air. All of it was there, exactly as it had been. But what it had produced was here. Standing at the window. Holding on. Much later. He was 52 years old. Wren was 11, and she was exactly what she was becoming. The specific person she'd been heading toward since the moment she'd walked out of the dark asking questions. She was tall for 11, with the light brown hair that she wore in a braid now, properly, with an elastic band she remembered. She was at a school that had a special arts program because Miss Caldwell in first grade had made a call that had landed Wren in front of a teacher who understood what she was doing with birds and form and observation and color. She had a portfolio. She was 11 years old with a portfolio of bird drawings that her teacher had said were publishable, meaning they could be in a book, a real book, which was a thing that was being discussed in ways that weren't hypothetical. Briar had been clean for 6 years. This was the fact that Walter returned to when he thought about what the past 6 years had been. Not the milestones, not the holidays, not the specific good moments that had accumulated. Those were real, those mattered. But the fundamental fact that Briar Collins had decided to fight for herself and had won, had been winning for 6 years, and Wren had grown up with a mother who was present in the specific way of someone who had decided to be present and did not take a day of it for granted. They had dinner together on Sundays. Not every Sunday. Life was not neat. But most Sundays, Wren and Briar came to Birchwood Road, and Walter made dinner, and Patrick and Connie came, and sometimes Clara, and sometimes Angela, who had become a presence in the specific way of someone who had been part of a thing from the beginning and was still part of it, who came to things because she'd watched them form and had a stake in them. Wren still had the room. She spent half the week at Birchwood Road by her own choice. Briar's apartment was 15 minutes away, and Wren moved between them with the ease of someone who had 2 places and knew how to be in both and was clear about what each one was. On a Sunday in November, the Sunday before Wren's portfolio was due at the school's annual showcase, she was in the bird room working on a last drawing. Walter was downstairs. He heard her feet on the stairs before she appeared. She came into the kitchen. She was holding the drawing. She held it out. He took it. It was a bird, a wren, specifically. He recognized it immediately from 6 years of bird field guides and bird drawings and bird conversations. A wren, in the specific concentrated detail of her work, with a particular precision of attention that had been in her work since she was 6 years old and had only grown more precise with years. But this one was different. The bird was in flight, coming toward the viewer, wings extended, and below it, the suggestion of light, a warm diffuse light in the lower third of the image, the kind of light that existed at the end of dark things. He looked at it. He looked at it for a long time. "It's called walking toward light," she said. He held it. "The bird," she said. "She's flying toward it. Not away. Toward." She paused. "That's what I've been working toward. The toward thing." He looked up from the drawing. She was 11 years old, and she had light brown hair in a braid, and she was looking at him with wide brown eyes that held everything she'd accumulated in 11 years of being specifically and entirely herself. "This is extraordinary," he said. "Is it the right one for the showcase?" she said. He looked at it again. "Yes," he said. "This is the right one." She nodded, took it back carefully. She started toward the stairs. "Wren," he said. She turned. He looked at her. He thought about July and a parking lot and a question from the dark. He thought about all the things that had been true and the one thing he'd said at the time, no, and the different, fuller answer that the 6 years since had been. "I'm proud of you," he said. "You know that." She looked at him. "I know," she said. "Every day," he said. "Not just for the drawings. For all of it." She looked at him with the eyes that held everything. "Walter," she said. "Yeah." "You stayed," she said. "I stayed," he said. She nodded. She went upstairs. He stood in the kitchen. He thought about a child walking toward the lights on a dark highway in July. He thought about being the light someone walked toward. He thought about how you didn't know, standing in a parking lot needing air at 11:47 at night, that something was walking toward you across the dark fields. How you just stood there. And it found you. And you stayed.